This is Next Steps for Seniors with your host, Wendy Jones. Each week, Wendy brings resources and information to help guide you through those next steps with your elderly parents or loved ones. You can follow, subscribe, and share on your favorite podcast platform. If you have questions for Wendy or topic suggestions, you can email us at hello@nextstepsforseniors.com or call us at 248-651-5010.
Welcome to Next Steps for Seniors, Conversations on Aging. I'm your host, Wendy Jones, and each and every week we love to answer questions about tomorrow, today. So our topic today is injury. We have an injury prevention specialist with us in the studio. Her name is Nancy Butty, and she works with community risk reduction. And there are so many things that happen in life and really at the home specifically. So the reason we're talking today is really about her previous experience at the fire station for over pretty close to 20 years. So good morning, Nancy Butty. How are you today?
Good morning. I am well and happy to be here.
Thank you for being here, because there's so many things that people have questions on when it comes to, calling EMS and when the right time is. And I'll be honest, listeners, a lot of people happen to call or just drive to urgent care, or sometimes drive to the hospital when they should be taking an ambulance. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, and also what we can be doing to prevent, injury prior to having to call EMS. So my first question to you is, because so many people just get in the car and drive to the hospital and think that that's okay, how would we know when that we should be calling an ambulance versus taking ourselves to the hospital?
Okay, so a couple of things. If you've had something that's been going on and it's been kind of nagging at you for a while, you're probably okay driving yourself. If you've got symptoms that are relevant to maybe like a heart attack or a stroke, those are serious topics. And they can be progressive in regards to that. Maybe it's on the mild side now, but in a few minutes it can become severe to the point of cardiac arrest, and you're in a car driving. So in situations like that, you're best calling EMS every time.
I agree, and or having someone come with you,
correct?
Right? Because
Absolutely.
Then they'll know to pull over and call EMS.
Absolutely.
Like, let's not even try to get there on our own.
Right.
And, when the fire trucks pull up into your driveway, right, and this has happened to me, is there something we should be doing to prepare at the house when fire or police are on their way? Absolutely. If there is an emergency, right? The EMS truck is on his way, and you're like, oh gosh, I don't feel good. I feel like I have this pain in my chest. Is there something we should be doing?
Yes. So preparing way ahead of time before the incident ever happens. Have a list of your medications, your ailments, your dates, your dosages, all of that. And really handy way to keep it is in what's called the file of life. And I know we've discussed it before on your radio show. But if anyone is in need of that form, you can get it at the hospital. You can get it at your local fire department. Or if you talk to Wendy, I can leave some with her.
Yes, perfect. That's a great idea.
And that kind of captures all of the information that EMS would need to provide you care. So let's say they arrive at your place and you're at the point that you can't even communicate. They will look for the file of life on your refrigerator. It's a magnetic form, and they'll have everything they need to provide you care. So that is something that you can do way ahead of time. So let's say the day has come and you've needed the care and you've called EMS and they're on their way. Make sure your door's unlocked, because if it's locked, they'll get in.
Yeah, if they have to break down the door, and they'll get in.
They'll get in. So make sure your door's unlocked. And then also, if you've got pets in your home, secure your pets so that, there's not the risk of them getting out, or in some cases, if the pet becomes protective, there's not that threat against, these strangers coming into your home. So just
it's a good idea.
Really
I don't think
simple,
people think about the pets.
Yeah.
Agreed. And EMS will always take you if they see urgency, they know when to take you to the hospital. Clearly,
correct.
And how do they decide what hospital is? Whatever's closest.
So a couple of things. If you have any life-threatening ailment, they're going to take you to what is termed the closest appropriate hospital. So, for example, If Ascension just up the road is a stroke center, so if you're showing signs of a stroke, that'll be the closest facility in our general area right here, right now. If you were involved in a car accident, you've got all kinds of trauma issues going on, then they will take you to the closest appropriate trauma center, which may be in Pontiac or down in Royal Oak.
Okay, which brings a great question to my mind, because how do we know? I mean, we all mostly know which hospital's closest to us, but isn't there different levels to a hospital?
There are. Hospitals can be level 1 through 4, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Okay.
And that indicates the type of care that they can provide right now. So like a level 1, for example, is fully staffed to provide any type of care needed, whether it's, going right into surgery or going into a cath lab or whatever the case may be. They're staffed, ready to go when you walk in. So taking it to the next level may be that they have staff that can arrive within 30 minutes.
That's like a level 2.
Right,
Gotcha.
right. And it goes from there.
And then a level 3, and then a level 4. So this is good for us to find out which hospital level is closest to us at our house, right? Just in case there is an emergency.
And honestly, the average resident doesn't even need to know that because EMS does know.
They make that decision for you.
Yes, they know. And they will take you to the closest appropriate facility.
Right. And I'm sure people who are listening right now are probably like, yeah, I remember going to this hospital. And then they're like, oh, we need to transfer you to another hospital. And that's probably because the people at that hospital might have been a level 3 and you needed a level 1.
Correct. So in some cases, let's say you have a situation where there is that car crash. I'm going to go back to that example. And you're very unstable in regards to your injuries. They may stop at the closest hospital just to get you stabilized and then move on to the trauma 1 level hospital to take care of the injuries thereafter.
I think that's great information. Mm-hmm. So what if, and I've heard this happen, EMS shows up and the person's like, I want to go to XYZ hospital. Will they listen to the patient and say whatever it is you want? Yeah.
So, if you've got, if you're going to the hospital because it's I don't want to say not emergency, you've called EMS, that would be considered an emergency, but
at least we feel like it's an emergency, right? But maybe they get there and they realize you're pretty stable.
Yeah. If you're pretty stable, EMS gets there, you're pretty stable. And let's say you want to go to a hospital out of the area. A couple of things is, if they do take you, they will take you, but you're going to be billed for those extra miles because your insurance company is going to look at it and say, there's a hospital 2 miles up the road. Why did you go 15 miles away?
And I'm sure it's not 62 cents a mile like it is.
No. You will pay dearly. You will pay dearly. So, and a lot of people are concerned because they're doctors at this facility or that facility. Just know that your records, will get requested. And if you're calling EMS at 3 a.m., your doctor's probably not at the hospital waiting for you. Mm-mm. You're going to get taken.
We'd like to think they are.
But. Right. So you're going to get taken care of wherever you go.
Right. And you make a great point about your doctors because people right away, they're like, well, my cardiologist is at, this hospital. But if you're having a heart attack, you need to get to the closest hospital.
Yes, you do. Time is of the essence. And the other thing, like with doctors, your cardiologists, your primary, they work at different hospitals. They move around. They'll be at different hospitals.
Right. So back to EMS showing up at the house. Is there any roadblocks that EMS is looking for as they're pulling up? Can you kind of explain?
Yeah, if it's a gated community, that's kind of a big factor there. Make sure they have the access code to gain entrance. Make sure that your lights are on. That helps tremendously. Make sure your address is visible from the road so that they can get to you as quickly as possible without trying to find you.
Well, and this is all stuff we should be doing every day, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
People don't have their addresses well notified out in front of the house. Yeah. Right. And then in an emergency, you're like, shoot, I wish I would have painted that address on the curb.
Right.
No, it's not the time to be thinking about it. What about hoarding? Do they run into situations with that?
Yes. Boy, hoarding is quite a problem. And this goes beyond my house is a little cluttered. We're taking it to the next step, and I'm sure, people have seen the TV shows. So the true hoarding is a problem in regards to that. Oftentimes this individual is not able to care for themselves well, that they've let their place get to the point it's at. So here's what happens is EMS gets there. They don't travel light. They've got their cot, they've got all their equipment. You've got at minimum of 2 people coming in at a time. And there's just no room to spread out and do what they need to do to take care of you. And in some cases, the hoarding, the stuff is piled so high, there's the risk of collapse. Like everything just falling over.
No, it's true. I've seen houses and there's just aisles going down, and it is dangerous.
It is,
and you don't need something falling and the liability, and I can't even imagine.
Right.
So you just very cautious on that, and I appreciate that you said the gated community because clearly, you don't think of all that stuff ahead of time.
And
usually.
Those are all factors. Yes.
There's a lot of things we can run into with fire. All we're thinking is we're having a heart attack and the fire truck's coming. We're not thinking of all the other stuff, the ambulance and all that. Okay, so I wanted to ask, we're going to do this in the next segment, because if you want to go to a different hospital, you said there's probably an additional charge.
Correct.
Yeah. Is everything else covered, though, if you're just going to a local hospital? We're going to talk about that in the next segment. You're listening to Next Steps for Seniors, Conversations on Aging. Welcome back to Next Steps for Seniors, Conversations on Aging. I'm your host, Wendy Jones, and we are very blessed to have our guest in the studio, Nancy Butty. And what great information she has been sharing with us already on this program, really with her 20 years of experience in the fire station, and then moving into a hospital setting and working in injury prevention is really beneficial for all of us to be hearing about. And we were talking about in the last segment about, ambulances and how much they cost and all of that. So insurance does cover the ambulance ride, correct? From the initial.
Yeah. So, being that you have insurance coverage, indeed you're covered, although just like with any medical care you get, there's going to be some copays, if you will. And if you're not sure what they are, by all means, please, call the number on the back of your insurance card and you can get that information, just so that there's not, sticker shock later, right? Exactly. And if you ask to be taken to a specific hospital, be prepared to pay a bill. That's all we got to say. If you're going beyond a closer hospital, you will be billed for those miles, and they're not cheap
because
miles.
People are getting more particular about that, though, I feel like.
They are. But, when you think about hospital care, it's all regulated in regards to the care that needs to be provided.
Right. I know.
So
you shouldn't be concerned.
Right.
Agreed. So, older adults are more likely to incur, ED, which is your emergency department admissions, due to chronic diseases, physical limitations, cognitive impairment, and falls.
Yes.
Those are the reasons that our seniors really are going to the emergency department. And I just want to educate or share a story with you really quick, because I think it's important to know this. When you go to the hospital, there needs to be a medically necessary, you're triaged in the ED department, which is extremely important. And all those ED visits, 82% of them are unplanned. So, obviously when you're in the emergency department and you didn't even realize you were going to be there that day, they triage you. And then when they triage you, they decide whether or not there's a medical necessary reason to keep you there. So I had a client who fell in the parking lot, but he had spinal stenosis, so that's why he fell. So they rushed him to the hospital. He was in the hospital for 8 hours. They did all the tests, MRI, all the things. And then they said to him, okay, you can go home. And he's like, well, what do you mean I can go home? I can't even walk. and they're like, yeah, there's no medical necessary reason to keep you here. Health-wise, your BP's fine, your blood work came back fine, all the tests came back fine, but he had what, we just said, a chronic spinal stenosis problem in his back, and it's not a medical necessary reason to keep him.
Okay. So it's an existing...
it's been there for years.
Right, okay.
Been there for years. It wasn't acute. So now they call, next steps for seniors, and they're like, what do we do? He can't walk. I mean, what? They're discharging him, which it does seem crazy, but just so you know, Alzheimer's and memory conditions is not a reason to keep someone in a hospital. It's not a medical necessary reason. Yes, they will stabilize you. Yes, you might be dehydrated. They'll give you an IV. They'll do all of that. But the reality is you're going to end up not being admitted to the hospital. And this is what I wanted to talk about just real quick, because this gentleman was never admitted. He was in observation.
Okay.
Now, even though you're in the hospital, in a hospital gown with a little curtain, you could still be in observation, receiving your 3 meals a day and all of that. So it's really important to ask the hospital or the nurse or the social worker, case manager, whoever's there, am I admitted into this hospital right now, or am I in observation? Because even though you're in the hospital, you may not be actually admitted. So what happened to this gentleman is because he was in observation, they needed the bed, right? So they needed to move him out. So of course, we were able to get him into a safe assisted living for a short while until he got his strength back and some PT and all the stuff that had to happen. But the reality is, I just want people to be aware, you need to go to the hospital when you have, like she mentioned, stroke, heart attack, any symptoms that are acute and a car accident, whatever it is. But you also need to know once you're in the hospital that you need to be admitted in order to stay.
Correct.
Right. Correct. And they will definitely try to stabilize you and get you out if there's no medical necessary reason. So back to what you're doing now, because Nancy, I love, and I just wanted to share that because I think it's important for people to know about admission and observation. But when it comes to trauma, injury, prevention, tell us what exactly is a trauma injury?
So a trauma injury is something that your body sustains as a result of something happening to it. You're in a car crash, you fell, something hit you, anything along those lines. So it's not the medical. So that gentleman had that spinal stenosis, which was a medical condition, but then he fell. So the fall would be considered the trauma, and his other condition was a medical issue. So that's kind of the difference there. So it's any injury that your body sustains as a result of an action.
So the 20 years that you spent at the fire department really prepares you for what you're doing now, because now you're out there trying to prevent them from going to calling the ambulance and getting to the hospital.
I've kind of come full circle.
Okay, so what can we be doing to be better prepared for this?
Yeah, so, as we're aging, and unfortunately falls is the number one reason that people come to the hospital for trauma issues. It's the falls, and the majority of falls are preventable, and there's all kinds of things we can do. First and foremost, we need to make sure we keep moving. Sitting becoming a couch potato, just a really big contributor towards the decline of your physical ability. So keep on moving. There's classes that are out there you can take to improve balance. You can take PT, and you don't have to have an incident occur to go see a physical therapist. If you have concerns about your balance, about falling, it's just a matter of saying to your doctor, I have a concern about falling. I'd like to go see a physical therapist. And they'll provide you the prescription for that, and off you go. But make sure that the exercise or the care that you're getting there is focused on balance. At the hospital, we provide assessments so that you kind of know where you stand on your balance ability, and then you can kind of use that as a baseline to move forward to hopefully, if you're doing well, you can maintain it. If it needs improvement, at least you know where you stand, and that's where you improve from. Right. So there's all kinds of things out there that can be done, but it's being proactive. There's no magic pill, unfortunately.
Right. And honestly, in a year, approximately 3 million older adults are treated for injuries due to falls in the U.S.
Oh, yes.
in emergency departments and more than 800,000 hospitals.
Oh, yeah.
So 3 million people and 800,000 hospitals. I mean, clearly this is an issue.
It's across the board nationwide. And it's impacting hospitals, it's impacting EMS, it's impacting the families that are caring for these injuries. There's the financial strain, there's the emotional. That impacts not just the person it occurred to, but their caretakers. So it's a ripple effect. The person falls, and then the ripple effect goes out from there. So it's truly a nationwide problem that needs some. I don't know what the answer is, other than proactively.
Well, I do know this. I mean, obviously, mobility is important, right? I mean, moving, and you don't have to be, we just want you to be strong enough to get off of the floor if you fall.
Yes.
And you do turn over, you get on all fours, you grab a chair, something stable, and you pull yourself up.
Right.
And if you can't do that, we have a bigger problem. So that's why she's saying don't be a couch potato. But the reality is the goal is really to stay healthy so that you don't have fear of going out or fear of driving or fear of going upstairs, because we don't want to live with the spirit of fear.
No, the fear can be crippling. If
there is a balance.
You really need to. So, some people have a fear in regards to, well, I'm just going to stay home and not go out and on my couch, and then I won't fall. But the decline of your muscles and your ability is just far outreaching in regards to the negative. It's counterproductive. The negative impact of being a couch potato. I'll say it again. Don't do it.
Right. And so a tip, just FYI, if you do live alone, this is just a little quick tip. We like to give these sometimes at the end of our programs. A quick tip is if you are living alone, have an accountability partner.
Yes.
Have somebody, whether it's a neighbor or a friend that you are fairly close to, that checks on you every day, or the two of you talk to make sure everyone's okay every day,
yes.
Whether it's morning or night or both, really,
yes.
Because you want to have someone that is kind of keeping an eye on you.
Yep.
And you can say that, hey, I'll keep an eye on you, you keep an eye on me, and just call it an accountability partner, for goodness sake, right? And I believe that person, when you're like, should I go to the hospital? You can call that person and say, hey, come over and tell me, look at the situation or whatever it is. Example, if you fall, you have a broken leg and you're like, oh, I'm fine. And you just call your neighbor and they come over and they're like, oh, no, you're not fine. We need to call the ambulance.
Yes.
But sometimes you need a second opinion.
Right.
So my tip is have an accountability partner, someone you trust, a trusted friend, neighbor, family member, whatever it is, that you can be, that person is your person.
Absolutely.
So we don't obviously want you to live in fear. We want to embrace this time in our lives as we age. And instead of being fearful of it, we appreciate that you're educating yourself and informing yourself of information. And that's why this podcast is here. Conversations on Aging. We want to share information with you. So thank you, Nancy, for all you do. We appreciate you. And we hope that you, as you help more people, are going to be able to make a difference in the lives of seniors. Did you know that Next Steps for Seniors has a business and a foundation? The foundation is a nonprofit created to bridge the financial gap between what seniors have and what they need to live safely with dignity and respect. If you're interested in attending one of our fantastic fundraising events, volunteering, or to sponsor a senior, visit us on our website at nextstepsfoundation.org. Or you can reach us at 248-651-5010. Next Steps for Seniors Foundation.